So, my panelists, let's just get straight to the point. Please kindly tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Henry Buisa, Professor Henry Buisa. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I'm also the former chairman of the Kenya Investment Authority, and I'm the current chairman of the African Agribusiness Incubators Network. We're saying the youth opportunities are in agriculture. Although we used to look at agriculture as a punishment, because in school punishment was agriculture, we want to turn it around. I didn't have a Commonwealth scholarship, but in those years, I remember 1975, I got a government scholarship to go to the Soviet Union. So I'm an alumni of the Soviet Union, not Russia. It was Soviet Union, now it's Russia. I'm here to talk about entrepreneurship and agripreneurship.
Talking of scholarships, these are university students. Many want to go and study abroad. How easy is it to get a scholarship? Did you have to give kitu kidogo? Prof, was it the same when you were going to Russia, Professor Buisa?
Yes, when I was in high school, 1974, 25 or 6, the word computer had just come up, and almost all of us, where I was at Crane School Kamsinga, we wanted to get degrees in computer, and we were told, probably because of lack of proper guidance, proper career guidance, we were not properly told that there is no degree in computer in Kenya at that time, but there was a unit of computer within business studies in the University of, in Kenyatta University. But me, because I wanted computer very much, I chose first choice computer, second choice computer, and third choice computer. And you can guess I was not taken, because there was no degree in computer. I was taken to Kenya Polytechnic then by the Ministry of Works to be a land surveyor. But I wanted to be in a university. So I kept my eyes open, my ears open, and I was looking for any opportunity. Then there were the technical cooperation between countries, in this case between Soviet Union and Kenya. Then there was a scholarship advertised by the government of Kenya for people who qualify. I applied for it. I was interviewed. I did mathematics and physics and geography. And there it is. I passed, and I went to the Soviet Union. So I wanted really to be in university, and I didn't give up, even when I had missed to get a degree of computer, which did not exist at that time. So persistence and focus will get you there.
Thank you very much. So we're hearing persistence, focus, and you get that opportunity you're looking for. But that brings me to the professors. Are we churning out half-baked graduates from our universities? Are they ready for the job market?
As a professor of entrepreneurship, let me talk from that particular point of view. That unfortunately, yes, in entrepreneurship, we're churning out half-baked graduates. Because we are not teaching people to be entrepreneurs, we're teaching them about entrepreneurship. We come to class and we describe an entrepreneur. We talk of the problems that entrepreneurs face. But we do not tell them how you are going to solve it. And we don't make them solve that problem so that they start being entrepreneurs themselves. And in my own opinion, one of the reasons lies in the Commission of University Education rules and regulations. If we are going to force us to give written examinations for entrepreneurs, an end of semester 3-hour written exam, yes, we shall produce first-class honors. but we are not going to produce practitioners. Personally, I am maybe, one cardinal rule in entrepreneurship is creative destruction. You destroy something but replace it with something better. Look at M-Pesa. M-Pesa came, it creatively destroyed something, and so I am actually, with the due respect to my Vice Chancellor, I am not giving any written exams to my students. And I'm waiting until I am chased away from the university because of breaking the rules. My students, anyone with a smartphone, open Google, go to the YouTube of Professor Muisa, and see my students. Their examinations are projects, and they started businesses when they're still in campus. So I'm saying that, yes, we are trying, but we're not trying good enough. Under the examination rules of the land are not helping us much.
Professor Moise, I'm looking at the recent trends in the agriculture sector in Kenya. Looking at, you are saying that entrepreneurship in terms of agribusiness. If you walk to town like maybe tomorrow, go to 10 people selling juice. 7 of those people, or 6 of them, the products they are selling, they are from home. 2 to 3 families that will eat eggs tomorrow morning. 2 out of 10, those eggs have come from Uganda, or even 4 of those families. Look at the recent trends. We are turning all our Arab land into brick and mortar. So where are we going wrong in terms of our country in trying to drive our agriculture? I also look at the way JQI was those years when it was Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I think we also have to wrap the word agriculture from that word, because there's no longer there. When you look at when campuses were being started by the university, all over what I was referring to as those universities, most of them were business courses. Yes, they were saying Jomo Kenyatta University, but literally these are business, BCom, IT, ICT, but agriculture really, I think there's something that went wrong to me. Maybe I would like to see your, to hear your information on that. Thank you.
I'd love to know how sustainable is the project you have started. I have picked out two themes from your speech. Number 1, power relations, and number 2, gender roles. And I'm glad you talked about culture, because that's what anthropologists really deal with. So when it comes to gender roles, it clearly shows that they are clearly defined in that society. When it comes to power relations, what effect does this development have on the household? Because I don't think the woman is literate. At the end of the day, she knows that she has to take back something to her husband, and she has to go back to the market. And also, I'd love to know, prior to bringing this development project, did you study the people, or did you kind of impose it on them? What if they did not have a problem with it? And has this affected the socialization process for the women?
So now my question to Professor Boise. If you read most of the technological innovations and entrepreneurship, there's usually an interface between art and science. And this goes back from Ada Lovelace, if you read the history of computers. From Ada Lovelace, who was a mathematician but was interested to programming, and up to Steve Jobs, who was had always the interest of combining art and science. And most of his presentation, when he was finishing, there was always a junction between where science and art meet. So I don't know how this fits within our setting, and how will you advise the student here to combine art and science in the process of innovation?
Okay, so let's have our panelists respond.
Okay, I have about 3 or 4. Let me say the following. All entrepreneurs are business people, but not all business people are entrepreneurs. All entrepreneurs are business people, but not all business people are entrepreneurs. The people you are seeing on the streets selling those jugos, that they are business people. We need to convert them into entrepreneurs. I've not seen an entrepreneur on the street. I've seen only business people. And one reason is because we do not have an entrepreneurship policy in Kenya. We have an SME policy, small and medium enterprises policy, and not entrepreneurship policy. And the entrepreneurship policy focuses on the person long before the person goes into business. An SME policy focuses on the farm, on a business that has already started. Look around, Weso Fund, You Women Fund, they say you must have been in business for the last 6 months, you must be in a group. How about our boys and girls who are in university and are coming up? We are not taken care of because the policy is not there. And therefore we need, and the policy means, first, skills. And the skills should not start at university. They should start right at primary. Build the pyramid of education in this country. Dropouts of the school system. I mean, it bulges, it narrows us because the people, the Form 4s who have now left and they are not going to university, what are they going to do? That's why things like competence-based curriculum should have been, the correct competence-based curriculum should have been. So what I'm saying is, what you are seeing, people going to Uganda and bringing in, even me, I told I come from Bungoma. When I reach Bungoma, I go to fill my tank in Uganda because the petrol in Uganda is cheaper. Why? Tax regime of Kenya is upside down. Uganda gets its petrol from Mombasa on road to Uganda, and again it's cheaper in Uganda. How? Ask yourself. So that is our tax regime, and therefore I will say not all is lost. We need to start it right at our even universities. Prof has talked, I'm saying it's called business incubation. If every university can have a business incubation center, that will work a long way in helping us. On agriculture, agriculture as a subject in Jomo Kenyatta, yes, true. We had agriculture economics, then agribusiness, and we realized that actually we are losing that. But now we have indeed. And why were you going to setting up those law? And partly, I don't know whether the Vice Chancellor agree with me or not, but partly because we are forced into it by the government that we must first share. If the exchequer is not funding us, then we must look for ways of funding ourselves, and therefore some of us commercialize education. And therefore, we may not just adopt. So I'm saying that it's true, it was realized, and now we have a completely new curriculum in agriculture, which is actually agripreneurship from from bachelor's up to PhD, and we hope that we shall turn around. On power relations, gender roles, and all that. Allow me to tell you a little story. I was doing an evaluation of Action Aid project in East Pokot, a place called Anglipe. And I went with my research methods, focus group discussions, interviews, and all that. And then I grouped people in a hall like we are here. And I started asking them to evaluate what, I found that indeed men were talking more than the youth and more than the women. And when we finished, one very bold lady, because in my team there were two ladies also, they approached the lady and said, look, you did it wrong. You cannot do a focused group discussion with men, women, and children, because the culture here is that children cannot talk where they are men. and so and same applies to women. Then they told me a few other things, how they forgot look at a woman, and these were all adults here, particularly when she is in her period. They consider her that she cannot even milk the goat or whatever. So it struck me. So next day I said I want to meet the men alone, talk to them. And I started asking, there is only one good woman in this world. Who is he, men? There is only one good woman in this world. Who is he, man? Some will say, mother. My mother had her boyfriend. The one you chose must be the best, isn't it? But indeed, that's what the men say, mother. And I say, now, if the only good woman in this world is your mother, how about the mother to your children? And then he started thinking that their wives are also important. And slowly, then 2 or 3 men actually agreed that the best thing in those projects must be participatory. And it's participatory, and the way you are going to, if they participate in the problem identification, and then I'm not going to the details because you have what we call the problem tree analysis, isn't it? Then when you use that model, they will start now feeling, because they are participatory, they are producing, and you have broken the ice so that they are free to. Otherwise, when you impose, what did the action aid do? They came because the woman has a role to fetch for water and all that, so they sank, we call it the deep well or whatever, and they wrote in Fund 96, Action Aid, and then in Fund 12, Tangle Bay Water Project. So whenever that project was needed repair, the people were saying, but this is Action Aid project because of what they have. And again, they brought the solutions from without. They did not involve the people. So participatory has helped in solving some of those problems. And then arts and science. Entrepreneurs are both born and made. And the leadership is both an art and a science. That's what we believe in entrepreneurs. I mean in entrepreneurship. And therefore, yes, those two must. In fact, the person who has just come here and had made this, what was it? The spoken word. Is that not entrepreneurship? Is that not creativity? And like the professor said, me, I am mentoring. The boy sitting in front, yes, my son, is taking videos. And that video, you'll find it on YouTube. Is it not business? Indeed. So you don't have to be technically savvy to be an entrepreneur. Both, and all of us were born with some entrepreneurial traits in us. It is just a question of thinking, like the speaker told us. Think and identify your own self. So there is a reach for it. And that is, yeah, and I think the leader said it all. You must first of all know what you need and what you want. There is economists are here, they know what are needs and what are wants. Of course, in the business, the ones will give you more money because they are luxurious people or whatever, but they need. So identifying what you need and what you want is very important, and probably addressing your needs so that they become the base of your wants might sell better, in my opinion. Well, my concluding remarks as an entrepreneur, I'll say, nobody becomes a millionaire working for another, please.